Hello. So, welcome back. I hope you're here already. Otherwise, if you want to watch a discussion of Malabou's lecture, you are welcome to do it. And we are recording this part of discussion, so you can watch first Malabou's discussion and later our discussion. And I hope you, for those who are here with me, I hope you enjoy Malabou's lecture. She's really great. And before we'll proceed to discussion of our class, let me say just a couple of words to conclude this class. First of all, I believe that those three, psychoanalysis, philosophy, and neuroscience, they perfectly go together, and they're supposed to cooperate, to be together, because in my view, philosophy, if it's outside of the science, there's a danger that it will turn into religion or mysticism if it doesn't cooperate with objective science that deals with human reality. And at the same time, neuroscience is it's very useful for neuroscience to cooperate with philosophy, because we see that interpretation of the objective data of the experiments, they still need to be supplemented by philosophical reflection. Otherwise, it just turns into a common sense, something that was reflected and deconstructed within philosophy. But if you don't do philosophy, if you just interpret this objective data, objective experiments, you just fail in common sense, something that was transformed by philosophy in a different way. For example, if we deal with objective science, deal with the human beings, it's supposed to be supplemented by some philosophical reflection. Otherwise, it just turned out to be common sense, something that is seems to be self-evident, but it's not. For example, the question if human beings are supposed to be happy, or what does happiness means. These kinds of concept that seems self-evident, but for philosophy, philosophers know that they're not. And psychoanalysis is a perfect platform for cooperation of those phenomena. And psychoanalysis has the same danger if we treat it as self-sufficient and as something that, as some doctrine that proclaimed truth. It turned out to be mysticism if we claim that Freud's ideas, the traditional psychoanalysis, is something self-sufficient that describes some truth about human beings. It turns out into religion. So if you don't supplement it, if you don't treat it as at the same time philosophy and science, and if you don't see at the part of science something that always changes, that always doubts itself, doubts its conclusion, it turns out into religion, into some mysticism, mystical doctrine. And philosophy is perfect spot where you can connect psychoanalysis and neuroscience, and for the good of all. And the other message of this class, this was the main message, that those three should go together, should be combined in different all possible ways. And another message is some subject that I try to develop, and that Malabou fits perfectly with this, with her subject of anxiety here, is that there are some something that we call destructive forces, destructive processes, and that they have to be, we can try to see them as self-sufficient and to develop them as self-sufficient. And Malabou here talks about anxiety as something that it's impossible to avoid. It's something about separation, our initial helplessness. It's our reality, and it's nothing we can do about it. So it's something that is always there and constitute us as human beings, as what we are. So not too much romanticism. We can start a discussion now if you want. You can come up with your ideas and talk, or you can ask questions. Can you hear me? Great. So we can start our discussion now, if you're ready. Okay, great. A quick question would be great. Yeah, it's from Malabou's. I was wondering either if you mean the Malabou's lecture. I wonder if someone asked her about this last time, if the ego and superego are the two parts. But the way she explained it, that there is a dialogue between them. It's great and it's helpful. But yes, the question comes out: are those two parts, and if the dialogue is possible? Because in my view, and as far as I understand Freud, it's not two parts. It's just some united structure that you can see from the different level of which you can interpret as ego and superego. So yeah, this is the question. I wonder we can watch the later. You can watch the Malabou's recorded lecture and watch the discussion as well. Probably someone asked her, but it's not the main subject of her lecture. And the way she talks about it and the way she interprets it, it really works for her idea, right? So it's okay. Are there any more questions or ideas?
I have a comment about the anxiety. The lecture actually reminded me of a film, Melancholia, where there is this danger of global destruction. And I don't know if everybody knows about this, that there is the meteor that is going to strike the Earth, and although life is going to be wiped out. And there is a depressed woman who is suddenly cured of depression in the face of this destruction, and becomes very libidinous. So it sort of illustrates what Catherine Malabou was talking about. The sort of anxiety that is actually something that occurs in the face of absolute danger, and that is basically practiced by those minor anxieties of repression. And when the film was a good concept. So I mean, this is just a reflection.
Yeah, this is a good reflection. Thank you. Thanks. And what do you like? All of you think that an anxiety is something that is always there. It's something that it's impossible to avoid. This is our ultimate reality. There is nothing we can do. Do you agree with this? With this perspective on human being, and with this perspective on anxiety, because it's something we try to avoid, and something even the concept itself, it defined in such a way that within our common sense that it's something we have to avoid. But what if we say that it is what we are, and it's supposed to be there for us to be human, to be humans? It's kind of a more tragic definition of humans and more tragic definition of anxiety, which I like.
I think personally that is true. I've been dealing with a lot of anxiety recently myself, and I found that lecture very helpful or interesting in talking about anxiety and repression. And I think maybe it is always a state will go through, but maybe the way we can approach it can be different.
Thank you. Because it really helps. It is kind of idea, and this is, maybe it's weird, but once you stop running away from it, and once you accept that this is a normal state of your mind, or I don't know, your normal mood for human being, and that, for example, the state of happiness or something that we think it's contrary to an anxiety, when we think that this is just a period of, for us to have some rest, the temporary, not that basic in comparison to an anxiety, somehow it helps. Yeah, it's not, you start running away from it and you learn to deal with it, something like this. And all the destructive processes, all the other destructive types of mood, destructive processes that going on in your life and with your brain, with your mind, once you understand that they can be seen as not something that has to be avoided, but as a basic structure of your life, as a basic mode of your living, of your mood, and some other positive states of your mood, like happiness and I don't know, something else positive. If you see it as an interruption, just an interruption, permanent, short, usually interruption of this basic mood, you just learn to deal with it and learn to accept this kind of processes. And it's somehow, but the problem with those therapists, with psychoanalysts, that they, it is in a way good for them to claim that this can be avoided. Yeah, we got used to think that this is something that can be changed. Yeah, this is something, and they promise that they can change it. Different kind of therapists, and we really believe it, but somehow, and the psychoanalytic therapy can last like years, precisely because this can't be changed. And yeah, so this kind of ideas here. Yeah, and anxiety reflects the contingent nature of existence, right? Yeah, I think so, probably. Yeah, I'm pessimist here. I think you know already. Do you have any ideas more optimistic? Tell me I'm wrong. E-therapy lasting for years always because it's trying to remove anxiety or just helping us become more comfortable. I was thinking this traditional way, the traditional therapies, like popular, even not psychoanalysis, because psychoanalysis is about something else, but this traditional kind of popular psychology, that on the level of common sense, that not without the deep kind of reflection, they're just therapies that want to make money really fast. But the idea that they try to, like, on a market, that we can be happy permanently and there is something we can do, that the therapist or counselor can do to embody this idea, to make it real. And psychoanalysis is, on the contrary, the contemporary version. Probably I told you already that the way Zizek sees psychoanalysis is as he sees it as a safe space where we can hide from this general call to enjoy. So all the world is calling us, this market had this call to enjoy. We're supposed to enjoy everything, sex and other things. And the psychoanalysis for Zizek, new type of psychoanalysis, supposed to be a safe place where we can hide from this call to enjoy. Because the old psychoanalysis, Freudian time, was something that was it was something that promised to teach us how to enjoy, to cure kind of sexual repression so we can enjoy our sexual life. But contemporary psychoanalysis is something, according to Zizek, I like this idea, something that is contrary, called to enjoy. Yeah, I mean, this thing is something that is just people who want to make money and doesn't go deeper than the common sense, doesn't deeper than something that seems to be self-evident.
I just wrote a question. I think I expressed a few times that I have trouble actually making connection between neuroscience and psychoanalysis. And the topic of anxiety was introduced seems to be look a little bit extraneous, but you know, on further reflections, since this is sort of a fundamental structural feature of the psyche, seems to me. Maybe that is a hook which allows us to make connection between neuroscience and psychoanalysis. There's a question for everybody, maybe.
Yeah, because for everybody, so can someone else answer it? I'm the only one who's participating in interactions here.
So I'm not sure how to exactly answer this specific question. I was thinking about the same connection, the link between psychoanalysis and neuroscience. Maybe you're right. Maybe an anxiety is a good place to start building the theories. But I have another comment / question. If I don't know what your thoughts about how sometimes it's problematic to try to adapt psychoanalytic theories to an ever changing and evolving neuroscientific doctrines or discoveries. So neuroscience is a science that is still in infancy. Things are always changing, and when psychoanalysts try to make their theories adapt to a new discovery, for example, or a new way of thinking about brain connections or circuits or neurotransmitters, there is always the danger of falling into to be outdated soon and needing to change the theory again in a couple of years. So there is it's kind of problematic. I mean, on one hand, it is not a bad attitude, because it does at least give this statement that, okay, we do believe in science. So this is the basic thing that it does. It almost functions like when religious people try to reinterpret the sacred texts based on new scientific discoveries. But that's another topic. But so I don't know if you have thoughts about this. Thank you.
Yeah, I do, and this is a good example with religion trying to adopt scientific facts to and still remaining within the scope of religion. Basically, what I think is that we should not adapt psychoanalysis, psychoanalytic developments, because it has its own specific discourse, words, concepts, but what we can do, the connection that has to be established, is that psychoanalysis developed in a crazy way, and it doubted all the old concepts that seem to be obvious. First of all, sexuality, and here we can see that anxiety is developed in a craziest way, because we have a doubt here that there is something apart from the self-evident conception of an anxiety. It's not something that we perfectly know what is it, and there is a space here within this concept that we talk about an anxiety. Yeah, we talk about, we use this word within on the basis of our everyday lives, but Freud, what Malabou shows us, that Freud included this concept into his, developed it within the scope of psychoanalysis and started to doubt it. So what neuroscience has to do, because with neuroscience there is still this problem, because if they start to deal with on this level of development, like a young science, if they will start to deal with anxiety, they will not doubt what does it mean. They will just they presuppose that they know, and somehow they will, if they want to, for example, to see how the anxiety works on the level of brain, on the level of neurons, how is it reflected on the neuronal level, they will presuppose that they know what anxiety is, but we can't do it. We have to doubt what anxiety is, and we have to kind of do something that that psychoanalysis did with it, but within this new understanding of what brain is. So not to adopt this crazy psychoanalytical concept, because it developed within its own theory, but developed its new crazy theory on the basis of the subjective experiments and the subjective data. But crazy in a way that it doubt the obvious, doubt everything that seems to be obvious. In the same crazy way means, doubting the obvious is always crazy because it seems obvious. Like we claim that we understand what is anxiety, what is happiness, but it has to be doubt if we want to stay scientific. Otherwise, we just articulate everyday understanding of what anxiety is, for example, and it looks for us like it is self-evident and it is defined, but it's not defined at the end. It functions as a part of everyday language, which is full of different kinds of prejudice and fallacies on all these things. So this is what has to be done. Like psychoanalysis was good for its time. The traditional Freudian psychoanalysis was great because it represented the active development of thought, of scientific thought, and it was great science for Freud's day. And today, neuroscience is the next step. It shouldn't adopt psychoanalytical concepts and psychoanalytical views, just this intensity of thinking that has to be adopted, this intensity of doubting what seems to be what was seemed to be obvious. Like for Freud, this sexuality of child, and this way it can attract lots of people here, because it's doubting the obvious is always interesting. So this is what has to be done. Do you have any more ideas? It's good because it's abstract. It's abstract concept more than memory is. It's good question. And like basically, all of you can read the chat. I should read it to you. Oh yeah, I didn't think about Bowlby in this. Yeah, we should add Bowlby here, attachment theory to this kind of line of thought. Thank you, Josh. Oh, probably switched it off the chat. It's supposed to be, yeah, I switched it off itself just to find out how to switch it back on again. I can't see it, of course. Oh, here's the chat at the bottom. You see chat button. Did you manage to switch it on? Yeah, I'll just copy the comment about Goldie in the future. Okay, so basically we're going to talk in following two classes, but we probably will change the dates about my next classes because we don't have enough time to advertise them. Is about childhood and traumas and this destructive plasticity, and also I will teach class about love, and we will what love consists of, and I will criticize Freud for his understanding of law as something that is based on sexuality, and we'll talk about Bowlby attachment theory. So I will criticize Freud psychoanalysis and the core of psychoanalysis and claiming that it's not scientific enough. There is something more scientific explanation what love is, even if sexual love started to be self-evident for us now. And the class about childhood and trauma, we will discuss, we'll talk about traumaticity of development. The childhood for me is something that, you know, is the embodiment of destructive plasticity, and we never stop being children, always every step of our development, even when we are grown ups, it's supplemented or moved by destructive processes as far as I can see this. So questions of ideas we can finish for today, and you can enroll on my other classes or on the other classes in our platform, or you have something else to say. Okay, then it was great to see you and to interact with you in all the ways. Thanks a lot for being here. I really enjoyed teaching this class. I hope to see you in my other classes that hopefully will improve the platform. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
You are currently the only person in this conference.